Between 2024 and 2026, the Shiny Hunters threat group extracted over 560 million records from enterprise Snowflake environments and exfiltrated 42 million customer files from Charter Communications. The targeted organizations operated mature, heavily defended data architectures and continuous CM logging, yet the mean time to detect these breaches stretched to 204 days. A review of these campaigns reveals a consistent methodology. First, these threat actors never attack the primary, heavily defended target directly. Second, the attack paths they use already exist. The defending organization built them. Third, the traversal along those paths uses legitimate credentials, unexpired service tokens, and approved integrations. Traditional security systems are designed to detect malicious events, but these breaches are composed of legitimate ones. No signature fires because the activity is indistinguishable from daily operations. This document details the standard organizational approach to defense. As the top table outlines, security is organized around isolated asset categories. A database receives heavy protection, while a vendor account or guest permission is managed under entirely different parameters. This model creates a hidden failure point by treating connected components as isolated entities. In practice, a standard support identity might possess a permitted, completely unmonitored link directly to that high-value database. Section 1.2 shows the alternative model used by threat actors. They classify opportunity exclusively by path. They search for an accessible node, like an SSO identity or a third-party token that already has a trusted link to sensitive data. While defenders focus on the vulnerability state of isolated assets, the attacker focuses entirely on mapping reachability across the network. Defending an interconnected attack surface is impossible if security classifications assume assets operate in isolation. The modern enterprise attack surface is a network of operational relationships. As the graph on the right illustrates, standard single sign-on identities and third-party tokens are often directly connected to central, crown jewel databases. These intermediate access points are weak nodes. A weak node functions exactly as designed. It may be a properly authenticated, operationally necessary access point, but its path to sensitive data has more power than its applied security controls can contain. This is where criticality propagates. If a standard contractor identity or a third-party integration can reach a Tier 1 data asset, that node inherits the security classification of the data it can unlock. Standard least privilege enforcement, checking if a user has more access than they require, is insufficient. Security governance must be dictated by the consequence of an adversary seizing control of that node. The Snowflake Customer Instance campaign illustrates how this structural weakness operates in a live environment. This flowchart reconstructs the confirmed mechanics. An info-stealer malware compromised a remote system, yielding a valid customer credential. Tracing the path downward, specific conditions transformed this account into a breach-ready path, lacking multi-factor authentication and network restrictions, directly accessing high-value datasets. The threat actors did not need a zero-day exploit or a software vulnerability in the platform. The breach succeeded solely because an authorized relationship was inadequately constrained. Heavily defending a core data repository is an incomplete strategy if the organization does not equally protect the reachable access nodes connected to it. To secure relationship-based architectures, defenders must translate this conceptual risk into a formal mathematical model. The baseline is defined here. Node controls must equal the target data's required controls. Focusing on consequence minus protection, severe structural weakness emerges when verification fails. Finally, compounding factors, the fan-out multiplier representing blast radius, and visibility uncertainty for unverified paths, multiply this base weakness. This equation defines the exact structural gap that threat actors exploit. It provides a specific mandate for defenders to systematically measure and eliminate this gap. This leads to the graph completeness axiom. The defender's mapped infrastructure graph must be as complete as the attacker's reconnaissance graph. Closing this asymmetry involves 3 specific layers of defense, beginning with Layer 1, pre-reconnaissance structural exposure elimination. This layer involves ingesting all source classes, cloud APIs, mesh network topologies, and identity providers into a unified, continuously updated property graph. Once the graph is built, Specific rule sets identify all unclassified high-value nodes. Paths to Tier 1 data are eliminated, and phishing-resistant hardware MFA is enforced on SSO hubs before an attacker ever maps them. Layer 1 moves the security posture from reactive alerting to proactive denial, neutralizing the attack path before reconnaissance begins. Because enterprise environments change hourly, Layer 2 introduces continuous new path detection to monitor the attacker's reconnaissance phase. The system runs a continuous traversal cycle with a 15-minute staleness window. If a team adds a new SaaS integration, the system triggers an immediate structural exposure check to ensure no new paths to sensitive data were created. If an attacker successfully discovers a path, Layer 3 activates. This is runtime traversal detection, designed to stop active attacks in progress. Instead of relying on signature detection, this layer uses coupling coherence monitoring. It detects deviations in the historical operational baseline between an intermediate node and the target data. When coupling incoherence is detected, an autonomous response isolates the compromised paths instantly. You cannot defend a graph you haven't drawn. By classifying risk according to reachability and monitoring structural coherence, organizations can outpace financially motivated graph traversals and reduce breach dwell time to under 30 seconds.